obviously two-time world champion.
Yeah.
His ability to lock in.
Ah, it's second to none. Also, Escoffier has been out for about a week now, and so he's probably finished with the initial patch of the new round in Genshin. So it might be that everything is going to be a little bit more okay because he's back to the league, back to playing some video games with his teammates. Maybe that's going to be a part of it. Obviously speculation, and here we are into the pick and ban for game number 1 of this Saturday showdown.
Some heavy jungle bans already with the Vi and the Xin Zhao taken away from Lucid here. So the Poppy denied on the other side, and then Kalista taken away from Guma. I think Guma carry obviously not a duo you want to play against when they have a pick like Kalista or the Varus, really trying to hamper the early impact that bot lane duo can have.
Yep.
Both top laners really bad. We've seen a lot more of the trading of the top laners and a lot less of the banning of the top laners in our recent matches. So we'll see if that kind of stays. You know, Azir is still open and available. Talia's open and available. The Talia ban really indicates you kind of have to prioritize that Azir. Otherwise, Faker will snap it up. It looks like instead they're looking towards the jungle. So this is an Azir 4T1 in return, 100%. And then I think T1 can just go Azir Pantheon in this situation. I think a lot of people have been happy with the Pantheon matchup into the Neferi. Ona undefeated on Pantheon so far. It seems pretty straightforward. That being said, you could leave the Pantheon till third, and you could look to prioritize the top laner instead if you want to prioritize maybe like the Jace or the Gwen.
Yeah, I feel like, Pantheon Azir is almost definitely going to be coming out here. I don't see why they wouldn't do that. And so I guess D+ knew that that was going to happen. They're very happy to go towards the Neferi Ahri lane. But I don't even know whether that's stronger. I just feel like Neferi first pick, I want to see the stats on just like games where you pick Neferi first. Because I feel like even before the nerfs, that was losing over and over again. This has not been a tried and true strategy. And maybe there's been something in scrims that's been going a little bit better, but it's certainly not something that's filling me with, I reckon Orcs is probably going to be happy about how the predictions are going to look at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think top lane going to come through here, looking at the Rumble for Xiwu.
Yep, I like that one. I think as far as the carry top lane is concerned, this is Doran's best. So picking that one away from him makes a lot of sense.
And the question here is, do you go for something like the Aurora or the Galio, like these hard counters to the Rumble, or do you just take like a Jace, who is arguably the strongest top laner right now? We'll see what they opt to go for in this situation. I feel like if they do go for something like the Galio, they're definitely going to put a more focus towards the bot side of the map. They do have counter pick, potentially for carrier here, so...
Yeah, I think,
instead of opting for the Jhin, I guess in this situation, you know, I just listed off 3 picks that they could play into the Rumble. If you have that many options, you're not really too concerned about going into the next phase of bans. And after D+, they could maybe target with the top lane if there's something concerned about there. And Ezreal going to be taken away from aiming.
That does make a lot of sense. Aiming a self-proclaimed best Ezreal, so not going to let him have that one. They can just protect this bottom lane matchup as much as they would like. Aiming, of course, with plenty of options, though, so it might just be an Alistar ban to come through unless they want to be R4ing that one. Nico going to be taken away from carrier.
Yeah, trying to limit some of the range support options. Obviously don't feel good playing into them when T1 does have that counter pick option available. Nico being very popular because she serves as that engage support while also having that range harass in lane. Yeah. And then Rakan coming out, so denying the potential to go for that Zyra-Rakan combination. And Alistar, we often see that on red side, that 4th pick Alistar come through, so not letting that happen. I think in this situation, though, T1 probably just secure the top laner for Doran and then leave kind of pick for carry, give them as many options as possible.
And the Scion was something that I was kind of thinking they might go towards. Gwen, not necessarily as powerful on this patch and has always had a rough matchup into the Rumble. This is going to be a difficult lane for Doran. Yep. But still, Gwen is very, very powerful as she gets into skirmishes. And in the 1v1 later on in the game, will be very difficult for Xiu to be able to stand up to the Scissors Lady. I
think maybe D+ could just go something like the MF Rel here. Aiming's been really a big fan of the MF, but instead actually looking towards his Kai'Sa, which, you know, it's a pick that he's very comfortable on. But playing into like Jhin and counter pick support as a Kai'Sa, this is a little worrying.
Yeah, this looks difficult. There's not a massive amount of setup for it either, but instead it will be paired alongside the Leona to try and at least get something there.
I think one thing to be said is that because it's a Jhin, you don't really expect a Braum to come through. so they feel more confident to take the Leona in the situation. And you can see T1 are not interested in taking the Braum at all, looking at options for an engaged spot. So it looks like the counter pick is not really going to be utilized in a way that punishes so much this Kai'Sa Leona. Yes, the Jhin will have a pressure advantage in the early laning phase, but this is definitely a playable lane for D+. And I think overall, considering T1 started off with a fantastic Azir Pantheon, I think D+ kind of happy with how things have shaken out. They got a comfort pick for aiming. The comp is very cohesive with these dive threats coming through. The matchup top lane is good for them. So I think they navigate things pretty okay, all things considered.
Yeah, I would actually say that as far as how it shook out in the end, it is actually kind of working. I think the lack of CC is going to be a difficulty here. I think you're like, as far as the top side is concerned, it's like charm, and you can slow people down with a harpoon. But like, otherwise, there's not too much to fit in with all of the skirmishing. So Beryl's going to have to be all around the map.
100%. I think as soon as they can free Beryl up to move, really going to have a big advantage. The problem is you're playing into a Jhin who does have that early pressure advantage. So maybe like an early gank bot lane or some way to kind of free up some pressure and allow Beryl to move will make a big difference for them.
I think it's going to be a big one. T1 certainly coming out of the gate strong though, and we've said so many times, mid jungle is so extremely important. And that's exactly what T1 locked in immediately. Pantheon for Oner, he has been so incredibly good. We need not say it again. Faker, fresh off his second pentakill ever, is on his Azir, the most iconic champion in his repertoire. And there's a lot of iconic ones, but it's just probably the one up the very top. So that's a very scary thing. We'll see whether T1 can put their money where their mouth is as we dive onto the rift for our Saturday Showdown, Game 1.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
Okay, now that we're deafened by the T1 roar, let us dive into game number 1. And I have got a very important thing to talk about first.
Oh.
Is that Neferi's skin a pickle dog? Because he's green. Or she's green. Lucid's green.
I need to inspect it a little bit closer.
It was a pickle dog, man. It was definitely a pickle dog. I don't even know whether that's a thing, but
concerning.
I'm saying that now, like, they've just, it's all been misplaced. You know, sometimes you put, do you put pickles in hot dogs? I don't think you do. Is that a normal thing?
We need Brendan here. You know, he's an expert in hot dogs.
Yeah, he's the New Yorker.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it. Chronicler would say that it's also a Netherlands thing.
Which it is.
I would imagine. But he's not here. He's not even here to defend.
You know, Dutch, they probably call it like a hoot doog.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You speak Dutch. I know you live, you live just above Chronicler, so maybe it's rubbed off on you.
Whenever he speaks Dutch, I can genuinely understand the vibes of what he's saying. So yeah, I'd say yes.
Generally understand the vibes. There it is. So there's the pickle dog. What do you reckon? You reckon it's a pickle dog?
It does look like a pickle dog.
That's 100% pickle dog for me. As Oner is, speaking of the pickle dog, going to come on over and have a look. As Lucid's going to find him, dives on in on top. And in fact, Oner getting the worst end of this trade. The bleed ticking down as well. As Lucid will push him away. The flash forward? I don't know about that one, but he should be able to follow with that front flip. And Oner is going to read it and flashes over the wall. So flash for flash here between the two junglers. And Lucid saying, get off my lawn.
Yeah, the big thing being at a level 2 Neferi, a lot more power in the kit compared to a level 2 Pantheon. Oner's going to get forced off even harder. This is great for Lucid.
Yep. And Oner does walk his way out, does manage to secure that, I'm pretty sure. As even some caster minions getting involved. Absolutely crazy. But Lucid will be able to turn this into a red steal. And this was Oner going for the invade, so he'd already invested the extra time to get over there and is not going to be able to find too much for it. As speaking of not finding things, no Harpoon joy there for Xiu on this top side. And Lucid will be able to finish this one off. So Lucid coming out of the gates real strong here on this Neferi.
Yeah, going to move down to try and cover his red side. I think he's concerned that maybe if Oner led the charge, if you look at the bot lane priority that T1 has, which we expected, I think he'd be a little concerned his camps could get challenged by Oner fresh from a reset. So we'll move through to secure those. Yep. It's a pretty big advantage gain. That ward that was in the river, spotting Oner, making a big difference. And Lucid having an initial jump on the play. And really, you know, Pantheon is such a level 3 champion, having all 3 abilities in your kit, whereas for the Neferi, level 2, having your flip and your Q more than enough for you to fight with.
Yep. Lucid not too worried about the untargetability when all you want to do is hit your opposition. And so that's working out very, very well. Bouncing on over, taking down some of these Krugs, and we'll head over towards this red buff, just maximizing the amount of red buff time. I do like that one a lot.
So in a situation like this, I mean, we see Ona moving over to secure both scuttles, so it's not like he's having too bad of a time, all things considered.
Yep.
But you have to be really concerned as a laner for the side of D+, because when a jungler doesn't have camps to take, when a jungler doesn't have much to do with his time, he'll gank.
Yep.
So you have to be a little bit concerned about that. Azir and Jhin, 2-win streak for T1, but a big loss streak for everyone else.
Yep, no one else seems to be able to make this work, but T1 with Gumyushi and Faker are pretty good at making Azir and Jhin work. I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to figure out why that is the case. As Beryl and Aiming trying to fight back here against Keria and Gumyushi, and we're getting a demonstration as to why this Jhin has been working out. As he's just having a pretty good time down here in this bottom lane, even though Aiming is keeping up. And I think if the Kai'Sa is keeping up in this lane, you're probably not too upset about it. We know that Aiming is known to pop off later on in the game on these Kai'Sa picks. He gets his hands on it.
Yeah, definitely a pick where you're just trying to invest in Aiming later in the game. We've seen so often as him being the Gold King.
Yep.
I'd say kind of look at the jungle with how things have panned out. The prio from T1 really working hard to secure the Skull Crabs means Ona isn't really behind, but I think you really have to examine it from the lens of if that invade had been successful and he had the prio in his lanes, Lucy would be out the game. Oh man.
Orin has just been obliterated by Xiu here, gets the scrap shield, flash forward and lands the harpoon. There's a solo kill, and that is first blood. Man, I'm so used to it being Gwen doing that, but it's Xiu this time.
Rumble matchup is a bit of a risky one, you know. You want to be up close to your target as Gwen, and you can just get cooked by the Rumble. Xiu planning a bit of big advantage there. Oh, nice dodge from the stun there from Lucid.
Yeah. Going to be landing a few of these daggers as well as Lucid, thinking that his prize is going to be this blue buff, and that is due to the fact that Showmaker has all of that priority in this mid lane, but bot side priority is also there for T1. So a little bit of an honest engage here as Keria dives forward. They get on top of Lucid. He's lit on fire. Faker free hitting now with these Sand Soldiers, but it's Keria that's the one in trouble. And with that Spirit Rush, Showmaker is able to take him down. Beryl now looking for Faker as Lucid in amongst it. Gumyushi the target, but Ona goes down first. And that's another kill, this time going over to Aiming. It's a disaster for T1. That's even feats of warfare already completed for DK.
Some great value there from the Ahri coming through. We're going to get a replay of that topside play first. She was close to overheating. Doran goes in to try and clear the wave. And just gets beaten down. See Xiu calling it already. Follows with the flash, gets the harpoon. Just beautifully played. Pings the flash as well.
And that must sound pretty good as a teammate, right? You've got your top laner that says, oh, my opponent has no flash. And then you kill Fate Jazz, and now he's dead.
And here, so I think a big thing was they focused initially on a Lucid, but Lucid is such a hard target to pin down. Faker's not going to go for the shuffle as a result. He's just trying to get some damage in, but Showmaker using that triple value to take out Keria, so much power from the level 6 Ahri. And then as soon as Aiming turns up, you know you aren't winning this fight 4v3. They have to dip out of there. Guma has to burn his flash, and a great early start for D+.
Yeah, this is looking much better. A revitalized D+. Perhaps, you know, you could say that they weren't quite as focused on the KT matchup, and maybe they were doing a lot of preparation for T1.
Yes, exactly. That's why
that's definitely what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice work, Ox. You knew, even though so many others didn't. That being said, they're not out of the woods just yet, and DK have had plenty of good starts, and they are extremely capable of throwing it all away and for it to mean nothing.
I think that's the thing, is that T1, you know, as much as they've had a lot of early leads recently, there have been times where they've fallen behind and just clutched it when it comes to those team fights. Yep. I say recently, they do that so often over the past few years.
There's a reason why they're back-to-back world champions.
Yeah, I think there is. So even though it's a good lead now, it's a good start to the game, definitely positive, especially for picks like Nefaria, like Ahri, who very much feel like momentum picks, still need to keep focused in this game.
Yeah, I think you need to keep your foot on the pedal, 100%. That will give T1 some opportunities to answer back, right? Because DK needs to take risks, they need to do things. And Lucid going to start by taking down these grubs as they spawn. It's going to be the first feed of the objectives to come on through here for DK. They can upgrade their shoes relatively quickly, but they need to get another one of these if they do want to lock that one down. And Doran fighting against Xiu. Grand Starfall does come down. Let's see whether the Rumble will survive, and the answer is absolutely he will not. As Lucid just wanting to get that final grub, and he does manage to secure it. So T1 not able to deny the feat. They will be able to deny triple grubs from DK. So T1 on the board now with that kill under Xiu, certainly good news.
Yeah, great moves there from Owner. You know, you saw Xiu finding an angle to get a solo kill, which isn't, you know, that common that we see those, but just an instant response here with the lack of flash. Xiu was trying to get the wave pushed in. Immediately the angles found. Doran and Owner working together beautifully here.
Yeah.
And that looked so easy to pick up, and then does secure them that one grub. Obviously, as you said, the feat contribution does go towards D+, but I think T1 happy to get a little bit gold back in their favor.
Yeah, and I think getting the Gwen out of the hole is going to be an important one as Beryl comes over and says hi to Faker. Hey man, how you doing? And Faker says, I wanted to go home. Please stop annoying me.
Oh, and also puts the passive on the minions, so Showmaker just kills them with the beautiful... Oh, Carrier?
All right, Carrier could be in a little bit of trouble here.
Something they chase.
Yep, still going to be able to get out. As once again, Beryl with another Zenith Blade. Charm going to connect there as well, as Faker could be in a little bit of trouble. Orbit Deception comes down. I don't think Faker's dying here. And remember, he really wanted to go home.
Yeah.
And so it's really not going to do all that much. He will miss out on this wave, though, because the timing's not necessarily the greatest. Good Charm from Showmaker, just barely unable to connect.
Or some good trades. And again, Faker's going to recall, but he doesn't have TP. And with him off the map, and Showmaker having not committed ult in that play, D+'s very confident to pick up this dragon.
Yep.
Second objective of the game.
Deadly Flourish, a bit of an attempt there from Gumayusi, and I was going to say, oh, that's optimistic, but it's Gumayusi. This guy steals things all the time, and so you could actually be a little bit worried. Of course, Piercing Arrow does do a lot more damage than Deadly Flourish, so there's that. But still, I get a little bit worried whenever he's throwing a skill shot towards a objective pit. As Lucid...
It's 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly, and Guma hits a large percentage of the shots that he does take. And so you combine that, and it's a little bit of a worrisome situation here for D+, potentially. Beryl just wanting to go in. This guy is like keeping Zenith Blade on cooldown as Carrier now without the Aftershock. Does take a fair bit of damage there from aiming, but otherwise I think it's just Beryl taking damage more than anything else. Faker's roaming down. This could be a little bit of a dangerous one here, as DK wanted to go up to meet him. Carrier comes over. And then a Fury in the river as well, so Carrier not going to be able to clear this ward, and in fact, he needs to just get himself out of there. Crashdown going to be important in order to make that one happen, as has T1 been able to get any of their blue buffs yet?
Well, they did get that one earlier. I believe it was Owner who smite secured.
Oh, he did,
But
okay.
they lost the fight as a result.
Oh, so he hasn't had blue buff for very long.
Yeah, oh, Guma.
Okay, Solar Flare is going to miss the stun, but he's still dead. Lucid comes on over, grabs the kill. Beryl able to tank up the turret just well enough. And Owner will be able to get a blue buff, I think, because the opponent's one is coming up relatively soon. Equalizer goes down towards that top side of Xiu. Not exactly having the greatest of times. Bit of a swapsies of position is very cute there between Showmaker and Faker, but Showmaker does use the ultimate just to avoid a potential shuffle.
I think it's just interesting to see how both D+'s solo laners very much get the memo. This is our weak side of the map right now. You need to just respect the pressure. Xiu ults the wave so you can back away.
Yep.
Showmaker instantly respects the threat of Faker going in and doesn't hesitate to use his ult to play safe, so they know they've got an advantage bot lane. We don't need to do anything in the solo lanes. Just make sure we don't die. Pretty respectful play from D+.
I was going to say, like, intelligent, respectful, map-aware play from my D+ this week. What the heck? Another Zenith Blade. This time it goes wide there, as Beryl is unable to find it onto Faker, who does have the ultimate, so he was never really in too much danger there. But we know Beryl just likes pressing the button. Only going to be taking his Gromp here towards the bottom side. Still a bit of a muted performance by him so far. It has, of course, contributed to the only kill T1 has put on the map just yet. Doran getting some plates here towards his bottom side. Still about 1 minute and 10 seconds left on those plates. So able to get that extra money. Certainly going to be good. Lucid just flipped over the wall, so doesn't have that ability at this point in time. Avoids the Deadly Flourish, though, as he flashes over the wall. Owner goes in, but Beryl is right there already. The curtains are going to get called, as now Lucid still trying to escape. I don't know whether Beryl is going to be quite as lucky, though, as he realizes he has to stick around, and that will spell his death. So a little bit of an overextension, and this is something that they were talking about on the space. The fact that DK sometimes just try to take more than they have the right to take.
Yeah, and Beryl dies for the sins of Lucid. Flash down on the Neferi, and you know when it's a Neferi who's a character who's so slippery, so hard to pin down, and you still have to sacrifice someone to get away, that's when you know you are really overextended.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a bridge too far. As T1 now with so much vision here towards the top side of the map as well. Rift Herald going to be up in 1 minute and 15. And that could really help slingshot T1 into a better position in this game. So we're going to check it out one more time. And yeah, it was just Lucid a little bit too far forward. Has to use everything and the kitchen sink in order to escape. The curtain call, so difficult to get out of the way from.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe Beryl could have found an angle to flash, but I think he would have just died anyway, so saves the summoner.
Yep.
Seen a lot of that recently from Beryl, just like, okay, I'm going to go down, no point using the summoner, and I think sometimes we have players who are like willing to throw down and try everything to live, and I think can often be a bit of a mistake, so still have that summoner available
I think Beryl sees deaths as a positive. That means I'm doing things.
Yeah, you know, he has been a little bit known to do that.
Yep. And also, there was a Herald fight coming up in a minute's time, and so having the flash available so you can get on top of, you know, Faker or even Doran or Own or anyone like that with a flash and the Shield of Daybreak, that could be a pretty good.
It's 100% the right call to save it and have that ready and available. But all flashes available across the board for everyone, so I mean, the fact we have the Dragon and the Herald, big time to set up some potential fights. You know, there is still a gold lead for D+, but we look at where the gold lead is in terms of items. Everyone has their one-item spike. The only person who doesn't really is Beryl, as Carrier rushed that Locket instead of finishing his boots, so maybe a bit of an advantage there, but you know, even when you have like an extra pickaxe for aiming, it's not really going to make that much of a difference compared to completed items, so I think both teams on roughly even footing going into this one.
I would say so. And aiming as well, going for a more physical build this time around, does make a little bit of sense. Means that I'd like to sort of change my assessment of the composition a little bit more, because I just don't like AD Kai'Sa that much. Especially in a composition like this where he's up against a lot of champions you do not want to be in melee range of.
I will say though, when you're playing with double AP solo laners, I think it does make sense.
Oh, you have to do it, right? But it just means that the Kai'Sa value isn't going to be as high because you don't have the poke value from it. Things like this as you move later into the game.
I think it's one of those things where the item spikes come in a bit later. You know, we're talking more like 3 items, whereas normally Kai'Sa's really strong on 2. But at that point, like late in the game, she's really going to shred.
And anything with percentage health damage is just going to do a lot. You have a lot of attack speed and can just burn through targets. Not necessarily some true tanks, but that won't matter as aiming still going to go in, even though it is relatively early. And the Void Seeker also going to be able to help out there, winning out in the trade. Bit of a cannon off here in this mid lane, but it's aiming that just secures his. Carrier moves over, finds Beryl, but they're just breaking each other's stuff, so it's going to be fine. And things have slowed down here a little bit. As I say that, they speed back up again. Beryl getting engaged on here. Good crash down as he's just looking to try and escape. And maybe this is why the flash was left off cooldown, as Lucid really wanted to secure his Raptors. He does do so. And T1, they just get a flash out of Leona. And we'll move over now towards this Dragon. A lot of vision available here. Showmaker on that top side of the map with teleport in hand. Doran going back home now. And Lucid well aware of what's going on here, but I just don't know whether DK is going to have a way in. As I say that, Lucid just blast cones his way into the pit, and Owner is going to be able to stun him. The front flip gets him over, but that means the Dragon definitely goes into the hands of T1. Equalizer goes down, not really doing too much. So an evening out of the Drakes. Another Earth, Wind, and Fire. We had one yesterday, and we have another one here today. Brilliant. You love to see it.
It's like both teams doing a lot of poking and prodding, trying to find little advantages and translate them into more. And that chunk onto Beryl and the flash being burnt was pretty big. Allowed T1 to get the Dragon, but then D+ kind of force them away so they can at least get the Herald as a consolation prize. And the mid tower, thanks to the pressure Showmaker had earlier on, is low enough where Herald with a bit of damage would be able to take it down.
Yeah. It's a big one. Now Faker actually able to put on a lot of pressure here towards his bottom side, but Showmaker is going to answer that. Spidey sense is tingling there as Faker is going to be able to back away.
This gives up some pressure towards the top side. You can see little concern that someone might turn up, so they do back away. But I think one of the things with a play like that from Showmaker is when you're moving towards Faker in the bot lane, you know they're going to have vision in the river because they just took the Dragon there. So, you know, maybe a little bit ambitious for that, but he will find his place in the bot lane and just hold that wave.
Yep. Kind of interesting. Our Gold King is Gold Kinging. I just feel like aiming hasn't really done all that much this game. but he is like almost 20 CS up. Has that extra kill, of course, from the previous skirmish, but he's 750 gold in the lead. So they've been funneling good old aiming, as they have done in the past. Let's see whether it's actually going to work out for them. I think this Kaiser is going to be really important later and later into the game.
I mean, especially since this was a game where we had a pretty late first dragon. Both teams have a dragon apiece. I could see it going to the later stage of the game, right? The goal is pretty even as well, so
I think every one of these Mountain Drakes is going to be so important as well. I mean, T1 has a Jhin. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to cut through if there's a triple stack of mountains on DK. So we could have a lot more action in this game, and I like that.
And I think it's just going to have time for Eamon to get stronger and stronger. The 2-item spike coming in soon is big, but 3 is really where he's going to take off. And now looking to herald the mid tower. This won't kill it, but they should be able to finish it off with some mortars.
Beautifully done. Faker is going to try and return the favor, heading down towards this bottom side. No feats of strength, of course, but first turret blood going over to DK going to be an important one there.
I have to TP out.
Yeah, Faker will set up a turret of his own, and will look to take down this wave. And I think maybe he's just dead. He's lost the ability to do the old...
nice.
Okay, gets over the wall. That's very cute. Malignant's on the floor, and they just have to back away.
It was slick from Lucid to dodge on the divide, but Faker is slicker. Manages to outplay that one.
And I think DK were just really scared that the cavalry was coming in. They've ganked Faker too many times to know that if you don't insta-kill him, it could really be a bad time. And she was on top of a ward here as well, so T1 know exactly what they're up against. Aiming, pushing out this mid-wave once more. And Solarflare going to connect on to Owner. Zenith Blade to try and chain this CC, but the Magnus Storm is good from Carrier. Untargetable is Lucid, but he has to use everything to try and get out, and it does not work. Oh dear. Sometimes Zenith Blade in, and it is just not the right call, as now the Otacon going to get taken, and T1 really getting out to a fantastic lead off the back of just Faker's phenomenal moves in the bottom lane and an overextension again from DK.
It's a very weird play for D+ to go for in that situation. You know, Showmaker's TP wasn't quite available, Faker's was, and very unforced. You know, I think this was a great outplay by Faker, and that's completely fine. But it's the play afterwards that I'm really wondering about, because this was so unforced. They know T1 were around the top side. They know they have vision. Maybe we're hoping the recalls had already come through. Yeah. But it just looks so silly from our perspective. And again, Showmaker just recalled, doesn't have TP yet. Faker does. There was no way they were winning that fight. It just feels very unforced. And now T1 able to pick up the Atacam buff and found themselves a 1,000 gold lead.
That's a big one. And so now T1, it's not even, so they have a slight gold lead, but it feels even more than that now with Otacon layered on top of it. Showmaker going to be eating some honey fruit.
I mean,
and a setup for this dragon is going to be the next fight. I think DK not out of this game by any means. They have to make some better decisions. Maybe just channel what they were doing earlier in the game, where they were making a lot of reserve choices and just, you know, suffocating T1 as best they could. That was working. Let's go back to that, perhaps.
They're finding angles to get some tower damage here. Oh, she was struggling now.
Yep, Doran in a much better spot as he flashes in and returns the favor. The turret will do a fair bit of damage there, as in fact, yeah, Doran does indeed die. But now we've got another fight breaking out. Beryl, once again, just gonna be dead. Solar Flare looking a little celebratory as it hits absolutely nothing. And T1, they get the better end of it, even though it was a 1-for-1 as far as the top laners were concerned. Losing Beryl going to be a big deal, because that should spell this dragon going on over to T1 without DK being able to do anything about it.
Starting to feel pretty rough for D+, considering how good this game started as well. Starting to fall behind and potentially losing a game like this feels so bad with how good it started. And here, Doran finds an angle on a Shiwu, doesn't have the cooldowns available to fight, and ultimately Doran just destroys the Rumble so quickly. That flash to follow as well. Really well played.
Yep. And then walks up, and so therefore dies to the turret. You can go right.
I did not
see that. Just letting him know. That's fine. Beryl could also have just not died in that circumstance.
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, hindsight is 20/20. Or
That play, that solo kill was pretty hype, and then I didn't see that he
All right, Barrel's in again. Lucid is there watching again, and Barrel's dead again.
This is just a never change game, I feel like, for Doran
Yeah.
Barrel.
Yeah.
Where Barrel is just playing like a psycho, racking up the most deaths in the game, and Doran, so like he finds this play.
That is like the epitome of an unforced error. You know?
Yes.
That did not have to happen. I think he expected that minion was actually going to take a turret shot or two, but unfortunately does not happen. Grand Starfall goes down as Shiu is just going to get swept back, and will do a fair bit of damage here to Ona on the outset, as now Gumayusi also in a little bit of trouble. Good cleanse from aiming, but it's not going to be enough. Carrier just being a defender, as Lucid realizing that perhaps he's also overextended, and Barrel's out of the gate once again. Okay, it's time to die once more.
Oh,
as
look at
these
the
health bars, these health bars are so incredibly low. If Barrel can actually get in there, Solar Flare is back up again, and he throws it down. Not going to find anything, but he's holding them in position. The Eclipse wears off. Barrel is certainly killable, but so are T1 as Doran's teleported in, and oh my goodness, this Gwen is so scary. 15 seconds until Shiu's back up again. And it's a 4v5. In goes Carrier, but doesn't really find the angle, and now Showmaker with all that mobility, looking to see what he can get done. Untargetability good there from Lucid, but Gumayusi, he lands the bullets. Faker goes golden, and DK melts like butter in the microwave. T1 just destroy them.
Beautiful team fight from T1, baiting out G push. You know, Carrier going in, not committing abilities, just trying to force out the aggression from D plus and Faker at the end with that Seeker's Arm Guard getting so much value. T1 just playing with the food there.
Yep. T1, like, that recoup was just so incredibly impressive. You get around Doran, who has that full health bar, and DK, they could smell blood in the water. But it just wasn't T1's. It was, in fact, theirs. As this starts it all off, and
I think Shiwa might be a little bit sick of seeing the Pantheon ult come down.
yeah.
And then here, this one's pretty cool because Carrier looks to try and threaten Showmaker, forces the ult, doesn't actually connect. I think he was going for the flip, actually. I thought he was just baiting him out, but doesn't find it. But then the Jin gets so much value here, and Faker, the Seeker's Arm Guard at the end. So much value.
Yeah, hits every single bullet. And T1 lose absolutely no one for it. And so DK well and truly on the back foot now. They augment this Infernal Drake with the first of the mountains, and everything coming up T1 here in this game number 1. And it looks like the woes of DK have not ended just yet. It felt like things were going to be all right.
No.
And it's since not necessarily been the case.
I feel like a game like this almost feels worse because...
Yeah, because you're on blue side.
Well, not just that, but it started so well.
Yeah.
It started in a really good position, you know. If this is the sort of game where if you go to game 2 and you fall behind, you're instantly going to be thinking the series is doomed. The fact that you had this advantage in this one, you were playing it well, and then just a couple of fumbles, and
yeah, remember,
now you're
like
5,000 gold down.
Shiu's like really had a bit of a rough mid to late game, right? But he started it off with a solo kill.
Yep.
Like everything, like you say, was doing well. We had Lucid chasing Owner out of his jungle, winning out in that early game situation, and it has meant absolutely nothing. As we can see here, the siege is continuing. The Baron getting to work here. As Equalizer goes down, flash in from Barrel, gets the cleanse out from Gumayusi as Carrier going down lower and lower. The Magnus Storm not going to save him there. There's some untargetability from Lucid, will not save him here either, as it's a 1-for-1 in the end. And now Doran is rotating over. The needlework is so scary as once again he's under the turret. Once again he's dead under the turret, as aiming not going to be able to stick around though. So with the health bar advantages, Ona? Okay.
That's a little deep.
Okay, that's a choice. You can't go through that base gate, but that's okay. He's able to wait things out, and the rest of T1 will join. So
that's just aura, you know?
That was a lot of aura, and I think Showmaker could feel it. As the inhibitor going to be the next to fall here, as T1, they're pretty good at this, closing out these games. Yeah, exactly. That's ticking down. They see the orb fly across their heads. Let's see what Shiu can actually get done here. Bullet comes on through. Everyone's slowed down apart from Faker, but I don't think Shiu is going to be able to find too much more there. Voidseeker going to connect, but there is no killer instinct. So no more teleports, no more silly stuff.
Could that be enough to get them Dragon, though? You know, very late recalls coming out from T1. Maybe a window to sneak in, but it looks like Lucid taking the red here, a little bit concerned. Oh, they find Carrier.
Yeah, Carrier just crashes down over the wall.
He is rather tanky.
He is indeed.
I think they've missed the window. I'm not sure if there was a window. It was a very small window, but they've definitely missed it.
Yeah. They didn't go through the window. They did manage to secure their red buff, so there is at least that. And T1 going to come on over and look for Soul Point. DK, I mean, they could theoretically fight for it, but I just don't even think that's going to be a worthwhile opportunity. 3 items like you were talking about, a thing to watch out for on aiming, but I feel like it's too little and it's probably too late.
Yeah, the problem is, you know, there's 3 items across the board for T1.
Oh, I'm going to connect there onto Doran, and then Showmaker has to try and find a way out as, oh, the deadly flourish! That was beautiful! From Gumayushi, has to now walk off the red carpet as Beryl looking for Doran. The Magnet Storm's gorgeous! Carrier sacrifices himself for it though, and now they're looking for even more. Over the wall they go. Doran is so low, Guma's so low, but it doesn't matter because they get a clean ace, only losing Carrier for it. And T1 will now look to finish the game.
D+ go for an attempt there, you know, they managed to find a kill onto the support, but nothing more. They don't have to follow through with Showmaker dead, and with this much of a deficit, it was a tall order anyway. T1 managing to hold strong after, you know, some troubles, a little bit of troubles in the early game. A very convincing finish out for this game.
Absolutely beautifully done by T1, and it was just the fact that they held it together, right? It looked like things were snowballing out of control, then one overextension around the Krug camp. It seared into my brain. Lucid just a little bit too far up. Beryl gets that first death out of his system, gets the taste for it, and then it's all downhill from there.
I think, you know, it's a combination of T1 being ruthless when punishing these errors, but there were definitely a couple of unforced errors. There was definitely a couple of moments where D+ were aggressive when they didn't need to be and instantly paid for it. So I think T1, zero hesitation coming out of the early game.
Yeah.
Didn't ever feel like they were in a position where they were nervous and really started for the mid-game onwards to set that pace.
And now I think it'll come down to whether DK can actually bounce back. And this is a huge test for this team because they haven't necessarily been known for it, especially when things aren't looking good in the DK camp, right? It's getting those spirits back up again that's going to be so important here. She did still do a fair bit of damage, but look at this. The damage spread is so incredibly close, you know, for T1.
Damage isn't everything, but I think the damage difference between the mid and jungle and how important mid and jungle is at the moment, I think it kind of tells a bit of a story. The Pantheon Azir that came out for Fake Renona getting a lot of value.
Yeah, and giving over those 2 champions was a risk and one that did not pay off for DK. Thankfully, it's a best of 3. They have another opportunity. We'll see whether they can pick up a win as we go to a short break. And then the space is going to break down game number 1. We'll have game number 2 of our Saturday Showdown.
한번 돌릴만 할 것 같아. 나 공하면 돌릴만 할 것 같아.
할만해.
3렙경이야 나.
도현이 다 밀어내면 할
왜 아리?
공이 있어.
나 맞추긴 했거든.
다 되어요.
아리 잡았다.
여기 나쁘지 않은데. 테레토 와다 앞에. 이거 좋다 좋다. 앞라인 앞라인. 좋다 잘 걸었어. 럼블 럼블 카이사 가져야 돼 카이사. 좋아 끝나겠다 이거. 나이스. 나 탑으로 그냥 올게.
Instead of just Like, yeah, they're probably there.
You know, maybe it was a calculated decision, but man, they are bad at math.
They might have been doing math on stream. That's dangerous.
Oh god, that's the mistake.
Yeah, it's a rough one to do. This isn't, though. This is Wolf getting it right here with the approach for D+. They're going to take away the Victor, certainly an important one, and the Lilia to be removed from Ona. Yes, it was Ona's Lilia that really destroyed DK in that game number 3 last time these two teams met, and I think it makes a lot of sense to be taking that one away. Xin Zhao and Vi, the obligatory bans. Let's see what the final one is going to be here. Maybe a Jace, just get rid of that so she cannot pop off.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is if you ban the Jace, maybe he feels more inclined to pick up the Ambessa, and he's had fantastic games on that.
True.
So they do end up banning the Jace. I think Talia being open is obviously a big priority. Varus also available as well. A lot of options right now. And no matter what you take for the side of D+, T1 are going to have something good in return. Looks like they will go for that Varus. I think T1 should take the Talia when it moves over to them.
Yeah, I think Talia is almost higher priority than this champion right here. We'll see what T1 does decide to do. There's no Talia Pantheon available this time that we saw have some fantastic success yesterday. But the Varus certainly going to be high priority. Denying that one from Gumayushi, also a very important one. But let's see what T1's response is going to be. And the problem is, I don't know whether they've banned quite enough here. As you mentioned, the Talia, that's an obvious one. But now where does Ona go alongside it? Maybe we're just gifted an Ona Lease in-game. Imagine that. Oh, this is good news for D+ fans.
The 4-loss streak, Ona's like, I'm going to break it. I'm going to break it. Yeah, if you're a D+ fan, this is what you were hoping to come through. And also not, I mean, decent setup with the CC, but not like the strongest, most intimidating pairing. Talia Pantheon sounds a lot scarier than Talia Sejuani.
Yeah.
And now for D+, looking at the Rise for Showmaker here as a solid mid option.
Yep, Blind Rise is something that we have been worried about in the past, but it's not blind, it's into Talia, and so this makes a little bit more sense. No dashes on a Rise, so you don't need to worry about the rocks. It's kind of
cool. And wondering what we'll see for Lucid here. I would assume a jungle pick comes through. There's things like the Poppy's open, the Viego, the Wukong. All picks I could imagine them picking up in this situation.
I do like the Wukong. Wukong angle is kind of fun. Does mean that Shiu's pick is going to go a little bit wide, but they're listening to us, Orcs. They are thinking that the Wukong could certainly be a choice. Wukong into Sejuani is a tale as old as time. We've seen it in the LCK many, many times. Sort of the understandable answer, but Lucid, like, during his utterly dominant streak in Challenger, Wukong was at the height of his popularity, and so utilized it a lot to get a lot of victories.
Yep. And here you have choices. You can either pick something for Doran, or you can pick an AD carry to match for Guma. They end up looking towards the Camille. We've seen this rise up a bit in priority, and also, you know, a good matchup into the Ambessa. We often saw when Ambessa first came out, Camille was a pick that was being used as an answer into it, and obviously Ambessa's a bit weaker than when she came out.
Yep.
So kind of twofold. One, you're securing a pick that pairs well to Sejuani, it works well for T1, but two, also making that Ambessa pick feel uncomfortable, and immediately going to start banning away top laners with that Jax taken off the cards. Now for D+, I think you start to target the AD carry pool. Xayah going to be taken away from Guma immediately.
Yeah, this is, it feels like a bit of a gambit. I think picking up Gumayushi's pick would have been the safest option there for T1, but this is kind of cool, you know? Picking the Camille and then protecting it as best you can. Of course, Poppy, kind of difficult matchup there as well, as you can Steadfast Presence the hookshot, and it is pretty telegraphed. The Jax, we understand this one. This has been the classic matchup. Now it's like Shiu can go towards Fiora if you want to get into that sort of territory, but it looks like Camille's going to be pretty safe there towards the top side as the Alistar immediate lock-in.
That R4 Alistar is so common that we end up seeing that come through. Interestingly, I opted to ban the Lucian instead and left that one available. And the thing is, you're never going to have too much fun on the side of D+ playing into T1's composition if you're playing an engaged support, specifically because of that Talia. Makes a lot of champions' lives hell, or no, I do not like the Rakan here.
The good old Rakan into Talia. Happens a lot.
K'Sante did get buffed slightly. Not sure it's enough really to feel positive about. And also, K'Sante, I feel like even when K'Sante was really strong, Talia was one of those champions who actually held him accountable. Talia and Camille, you actually take damage on this champion when you're playing into those two. So a little concerning. And I really hope it's... I mean, Wukong Rakan is a cool combo, but into Talia, into Camille, you only get exploded if you pick Rakan here. So please, I'm hoping it is not the Rakan.
It depends what Beryl's goals are. But the Braum is going to come in, so his goals may not be die over and over again, because if that was his goal, then the Rakan would have been locked in. The MF just going to be picked face up into a Braum. Doesn't necessarily feel fantastic, but the ways this composition can flank on T1's side means that the door value, even if you are just picking MF straight up into it, is still not going to be that high.
Yeah. I mean, also what often happens in pro play is that the Braum is a little bit under-leveled compared to like solo queue. Also, we see a lot of Braums not putting points in their shield. Very important. So if you end up, you know, let's say you have Camille ult aiming and Beryl jumps in front to block, he will just die.
Yes.
He will just die. Because as much as the wall does a lot to stop it, if you're behind, if you're down on levels, which, you know, supports in pro play are, you will go down. So I think T1, I think what they got for the top side was fantastic. The Alistar, really strong pick as well. I think D+ were in danger of really hamstringing themselves. I think they didn't do that, but, you know, I still think there's some question marks. Playing into Talia, which has been such a valuable pick on this patch as well. And Cassante, I'm really not sold on. I don't think the buff was enough.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the whole Cassante situation, especially when if the rocks are down and you press your all-out button and go through a wall and you can just like eat all of the rocks and then die in the 1v1 on the other side of the fight, it can feel a little bit bad. But we'll have to trust Chiu that he knows what he's doing in this matchup. It just really felt like T1 had taken away a lot of the tools used to try and keep this Camille down. So Doran actually, I feel, is going to be a bit of a main character moving into this game number 2 as T1 poised for a 2-0 over DK here in our Saturday Showdown. See whether they can do it.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
All right, T1 fans in full voice here in Lowell Park, but you can feel some of the desperation on the DK side at the same time. We'll see whether that is going to pay off as we get into it. Faker on his Talia, a pick that he has found a lot of success on in the past. Not necessarily in his like top 10 most iconic picks, but those ones are, you know, champions he's been playing a whole lot of times for a very, very long time. So still going to be a good one. And I think this season as well, his Talia has looked good.
Did just land a full threaded volley on the Showmaker, who kind of stopped moving after that.
Yeah.
Seemed like I could see Rise sigh. He didn't, but it felt like I could see him sigh.
I could kind of feel him flex. He's like, I can take it. You know, that's what I felt.
That's a positive way to look at it.
Yeah.
I feel like Beryl would definitely do that.
Yeah. He did. He did that over and over again in the last game, and then they lost. It's kind of how that one went. And that is not a criticism, because of course I do not actually understand what makes Beryl the way he is. Maybe these deaths in some of these games are why he's a 2-time world champion. As headbutt out, Gumayusi's still going to be taking a bit of damage here as Beryl does find that first Winter's Bite. And the second one as well, this time eaten by the cow. As Aiming and Beryl still needing to deal with this wave, Gumayusi doing a good job just focusing that one down, trying to get to that level 2 as quickly as possible.
You've got to be a little bit cautious in this matchup as T1's bot lane, because playing into Braum typically in extended fights, you do lose out because of the passive stacking. But particularly MF Alistar into Varus Braum, the longer the trade goes, the longer the fight goes, the worse you lose it. You know, you have the passive for that initial burst from Guma. Short trades, poke trades like that, perfect. That's exactly how you wanted to go. If it turns into an all-in, it does get a bit messy. I will say, Ignite for carrier versus heal for Beryl does give it a bit of advantage in the all-in, but I don't think it's really going to be enough unless it's a big misplay from D+'s bot lane.
Huh. So, 2025 has not been a good year for the Cassante.
Yeah. I mean, he's been nerfed so many times, and the buff he got in return, which I believe was like his W damage.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like it does.
I don't think it's enough to really change the game. And especially, you know, maybe there's a scenario where Cassante is really good and you're like, okay, this feels phenomenal, but into Camille, I think Camille's going to have a fine time, particularly into this composition with Talia, who just, the Unraveled Earth just really chokes out what Cassante wants to do, which is dash all the time. And also, she actually can cut through him
Yeah.
Often with building like Leandri's.
I can clarify what the buff was. It was 5 base damage to Pathmaker, which is W.
Wow.
And so, doesn't really do all that much. As Ona looking to grab himself a scuttle. Things have been quiet in the jungle, as we've seen thus far. And even though there are some difficulties towards that top side, I do think that this Wukong is going to be incredibly important in this game for DK. I think the team fighting for them as well is going to be very, very strong. And there's not a massive amount of range on T1's side, right? So this could be a possibility. We have to remember that as well, like with the Cassante, there is the fact that you can drag the Camille out of a Hextech ultimatum with your ulti, and that can help cancel it. So the setup isn't quite as good if it is just onto this top laner. So there is that. There's the understandable reason as to why he picked it. It's just not sure whether it's exactly the greatest. There's good flash there from aiming. His Beryl also able to get out of the way and puts up the door in a really good spot. And they're even able to turn this. A lot of value from that piercing arrow, but both flashes now on cooldown, and Gumayusi holds on to his. Good news for T1.
There could not be a clearer indicator that they didn't know Ona was there than when Beryl jumped in.
Wait, no, but this is the thing. Is that an indicator of that?
Any other player, I'd say yes.
Exactly, because you watched him in the last game.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's all right, Lucid. Coming on over, seeing whether he has an avenue in. It looks like the answer is going to be no. And aiming, you can see with a lethal tempo as well, so going for more of that on-hit version of the Varus. Over a ward goes Lucid once again, so bottom lane understanding that they can continue to push forward for T1. This first Drake is going to spawn. It's going to be an Ocean, meaning that our Soul could be a good one. And she back up here towards his top side. Pulverize is going to connect there onto aiming. He's taking a lot of damage. Remember, no flash. Has to cleanse. As Carrier throws down the late Ignite.
Yeah, Beryl actually out of mana, which is kind of hard to do in a Braum, if I'm being real. Definitely a lot of Winter's Bite spam. Now the Hex Flash coming in.
Yeah, over the wall goes Carrier. And he's out of turret range, finds a double Pulverize. Make a Rain comes down as Gumayusi comes on over. The door is set up at first blood. Still goes over to the Misfortune. And Beryl, like you say, didn't have a whole lot of the blue stuff, but is now going to have to deal with another wave as Carrier finds yet another Pulverize. He will die, and Beryl is fine. And Gumayusi decided that he did not want to kill him.
All in Beryl's plan. He's the carry.
Showmaker is coming down towards his bottom side as well. As he realm warps in, he's got a flash.
Kill, he's got cleanse.
Yeah. So Showmaker's still going to flash for it. Throws a Q, doesn't quite do enough damage. And so is going to trade his flash for a cleanse, which I would say in my little book of conversions, that's not worth.
Look, this is an assumption, and I'm not saying it's true, but I think it'd be very funny if he realm warps in, and he's like, what sums does BMF have? Beryl's like, no sums, no summoners at all.
Yeah.
Flashes, cleanses.
And immediately tilts.
Grumbles a little bit.
Yeah.
Not saying that was the case, but it would be very, very... That happens all the time in solo queue when you jungle. It's like, what sums does bot lane have?
Yeah, no sums, quick. You need to come, you need to come.
Go for the flash play in, and then they just flash out, and everyone dies. I was like, oh, no, they still had, that one.
Awkward, it must have just come up,
Yeah, the lack of mana for Beryl means he saves his mana for his E, but doesn't have mana to Q as well. Guma flashes through the wall to kill, and it's just... This is just bad lane management from the side of D+. The fact that you have a scenario where Beryl's out of mana and aiming's that low shouldn't really be happening.
Yeah. Still, we have to really point out that T1 did get the much better end of that trade. They not only get first blood, but they also keep Gumayusi around as aiming died, so isn't able to pick up experience and gold and all that sort of stuff. And so as you can see, 400 gold lead for the MF going to be far more important than Beryl having a 140 ahead of Carrier. As DK thinking about going for a contest, but I don't know about it. As Seismic Shove going wide. Carrier comes in, gets a Pulverize onto Lucid, who does get the decoy off. And now Doran just says, nope, you do not have a jungler. They also take down the Dragon on the back end as aiming. He is just going to get evicted from this area. No flash, no chance. And Gumayusi even able to walk on over, give him a love tap, take him down. Shu on this top side of the map is at least trying to get something back, but I don't know whether it's going to be enough to make that play worthwhile.
Great moves from Doran to come down there. As soon as they saw the 5th member, D+ knew they were cooked, but no summoners on that bot lane meant they were never going to be able to get out of that situation, and just again, it just feels a little bit messy from D+, a little bit misguided. The deficit isn't that big so far in this game, but T1 looking a lot cleaner so far.
Yeah. And Gumayusi looking great on this Misfortune as well. So we're going to have a look at it one more time.
It's like they're setting up for this fight. T1 are grouped together and Showmaker's at a complete distance. And also just, you know, question mark pings coming out in the top lane. Like, oh, where's Doran? Oh, there he is. Yeah, and because they don't have flashes on Beryl or aiming, they just all die.
And yes, you see, aiming having the difficulty of not being able to walk very fast to get out of seismic shoves. So Faker able to pull him back in, get another kill for Gumayusi to make that lane even more difficult for this Varus. As T1 looking to take down these grubs at the same time, they will be one objective away from picking up feats of strength in this game if that does in fact come in. Showmaker looking to try and defend as Gumayusi Carrier are set up. Owner is taking the grubs. They're just taking all sorts of things all the time. And T1's lead, I think, is only going to extend from this point on as Lucid looking to try and at least get a crab, consolation crab there for the Wukong. She looking to go a little bit aggressive. Even has time to go back and get the cannon. You like to see that. And Carrier, I feel like he's everywhere this game. As the Cyclone comes in, can Carrier actually get in there to headbutt Lucid under the turret? And he does, in fact, do so. He flashes away. Realm Warp going to come on through. That gets rid of Beryl. So Beryl lives, and Lucid is very dead.
Feels desperate. You know, great move there from Carrier, hiding in the brush in between. Been able to spot Lucid moving around, but it just feels like these plays they're going for. Desperation really wasn't in position for follow-up to come through onto Guma, and Lucid does go down. It seems like D+'s woes are just getting more and more dear.
Yes, it's not looking great. She does get the knockback. That was a cute little play. Looks for the all-out angle, but Doran just able to use the ult, gets back behind him, and Shiu doesn't have that angle anymore. Still going to be able to get the ult out for basically free here. And so the Cassante looking pretty good at this point in time, at least.
See Owner hanging around for cover, but he has gone now.
As let's see how greedy Doran is going to be. As let's see the replay instead.
Yeah, so
Carrier's perspective.
I think it was an ambitious play, even if Carrier wasn't there. But Carrier being there just meant there was no chance of it working. You know, Showmaker's not able to get into range, into position to follow up.
Yeah, it was beautifully done. Owner also over the wall with the Glacial Prison towards the end there, just to put the icing on the cake. Worked out very, very well. As Lucid on top of a ward once again. They've been tracking this Wukong so effectively. It feels like T1, no surprises on the map for them whatsoever. Whereas DK are doing a lot of guesswork, and they have not been guessing correctly.
Oh no, they have not.
As Doran now, Trinity Force in hand. Gumayusi looking to lock down this bottom outer turret. And DK, I don't know whether they'll be able to get in as Shiu's going to move down. Faker's in position though. Shiu desperately trying to get towards this turret. He takes a fair bit of damage, but he is pretty tanky. And he gets over to the other side of the wall. Lucid going in. And Shiu clears out the wave. Yeah, now that he's here, Shiu's like, how do I get down? You know, it's like doing that mountain climbing where you climb up and you're like, wait a second. How am I supposed to figure out my way back? As Showmaker teleports in, and maybe that is the way he did it. Just asks his teammate to bring a ladder.
Just save him, just keep toppling. Oh.
Okay, Chains of Corruption going down. Remember, Doran doesn't have the ulti as they get the stun down onto Doran, but he's just quite tanky enough. And DK not going to be able to get the kill. Still, they get the flash, and that is important.
Really, the difference here is aiming not having that first time completed. If he had that Blade of the Rune King, I think Doran would have just been dead. But the deficits, the gold deficit, showing that, you know, even plays that make sense start to fail when you're lacking that extra bit of damage.
Well, speaking of an extra bit of damage, I think Faker certainly has it. As the threaded volley is coming down, we're going to stop watching that one as Lucid comes in, and the hook shot is so good from Doran. Bullet time comes down as well. Beryl almost just dead from that one, but they do manage to get the Camille, but at what cost? The answer is everything.
Easy cleanup from the side of T1. You know, D+ go for that initial play onto Doran when he steps forward, but here, you've waited too much time. T1 have reset, they found a position where they can all collapse in, and it feels like D+ just blindly grabbing at whatever they can, and T1 slapping the hand away.
Yep. Yeah, slapping the hand away, and then the hand hits them in the head.
Yes.
Is kind of how it goes. As, yes, they do manage to kill Doran, but Beryl unable to stop Doran from being able to hookshot his way out. Gumayusi unanswered on the bullet time, and then just comes on over and auto attacks them down. T1 just rotating more crisply, right? And you've got Shu, yeah, he's in the mid lane, he's able to get like a plate or two or something like that, but a Cassante being 180 gold ahead just doesn't really mean anything at all.
Yeah.
I think the MF being 1.6k ahead at 13.5 minutes into the game is probably the more important thing.
It's looking pretty scary. It's looking pretty bad. And also, you know, you have a Braum on your team. You're kind of relying on like the Wukong to be engaging, and Lucid is falling further and further behind. Like, look at the health bar of the Wukong compared to Sejuani.
Yeah.
You dive in as this Wukong, you're probably just dead immediately.
Well, Lucid is going to dive in and just flashes away and dies.
Wow.
Like, why? Still, Showmaker and Shu, they're going to come on over. All Out is going to be used to separate Ona from this fight, but he just gets back towards this collapse onto Showmaker, and Gumayusi, he comes down yet again. They've set the table for it, and they're now looking to grab these kills. Glacial Prison comes on through once more, but Shu, pretty tanky, so isn't going to be dying just yet. In the meantime, Faker on that top side of the map is looking to take down this turret. He should be able to do so. Remember, first turret blood still on the cards. No feats of strength taken just yet. It is just one objective away here for T1. As 3,000 gold is still the lead. Faker still up here. Should be able to get this.
This is kind of what I was worried about after game one. Because game one, D+ had a lead, had an advantage, managed to push it a little bit, and then they started to flounder and T1 pulled back. This is a game, though, where T1 are the ones who led the charge, who have the advantage, and it just doesn't even look remotely close.
Nope. I feel like the floundering is where we started.
Yeah.
Instead of what we got to.
He takes so much damage before the red even goes down. Like, maybe the thought process is, hey, we can collapse on them. Then commit to the fight. You know, you're dying for a red buff, and then you're opting into a 2v2 when you're behind, and then Guma turns up as well. It's just... I think even D+, if the players were looking at this play, which undoubtedly they'll review, they won't have any justification. They'll be like, yeah, I don't know what we were doing either. It just really feels like they're a little bit lost right now.
It's looking like that. It's sort of been the tale of the week, to be perfectly honest. A loss against KT is not something many of us were expecting.
Weak like EA or weak like EE?
Both.
Yeah, I
pick one. Or just, yeah, do both. Just both. I think it's fine. Showmaker and Lucid going to see whether they can kill Faker. And Faker just skates away.
Yep.
Could be something to transition into some sort of Artican play, as I say.
Let's punish Faker in the side lane. That's never failed before. That's always a solid strategy against T1. I'm sure he's all by himself and doesn't have the entirety of the Avengers ready to assemble the second something goes wrong.
The old Avengers or the new ones?
Both of them together.
Oh, all of them?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Rift Herald is just going to be secured here by T1. And Showmaker standing on a ward. That could be scary. Blast Cone here. It's an Infernal Soul, so we'll have a few extra Blast Cones. Sorry, Valdez. As, yes, T1 just trying to get even more control just to make sure that Faker can very safely take this turret on this top side. As I've seen fights in this area happen before, as Beryl throws out an ulti for fun.
Yes, so Engage Braum still not working too hotly.
Yeah. He did hit 2 people with it. So there's that. So
you're saying it's not his fault?
No, I'm saying he should have probably not done it because no one was there to do anything about it. Because even though the thing that he wanted to happen happened, there was no actual result.
Yeah, it wasn't a skill issue, it was a decision issue.
Yes, it was certainly one of those. It's okay, Lucid just clearing things out. And let's see where T1 are going to strike next. Just feels already like it's a circling of the drain. It's a 4,000 gold lead, and that is pretty considerable here for 17.5 minutes. And look at that, linear gold graph. If you were Tom or Coma, you'd be sitting backstage, you're like, yes, that is right, boys. That's how we want to snowball a lead.
Yep. And this could end up being a win on the Sejuani for Ona, breaking that loss streak.
Yeah, this is the important thing on T1's side. What was it, 0-4?
Yep,
that seems crazy. As Headbutt Pole under Beryl. Ona swings a flail at him. Is okay. Aiming going to start this one up. He's already down very low. There's the flash forward. Can they actually kill Guma? Is the question. The answer so far is no. They take down Beryl finally. They overextend far enough to kill the Misfortune, but now the rest of them are likely to go down. Doran just executes Aiming underneath the turret. And Shiu trying to escape. That blast going direction was looking a little dicey, but he gives him the good old thumbs up as he exits. But they didn't need to kill Shiu to feel really good about how this fight goes, as Lucid is just running for the hills. And he will get out, but at what cost?
I'm not sure why Lucid didn't flash. I actually think, like, don't get me wrong, they probably would have lost that fight anyway. But if you're going to go for that play and Guma flashes your Cyclone,
yeah,
have to flash after. I find that so. Did he not have the flash available at the time? I want to see the replay and check, because
yeah, may not have. It might have just been coming up or something like that, because I was kind of waiting for that angle as well. As Faker will find Shiu, and dashes over some rocks, but is otherwise going to be okay. Let's have a look at it one more time and check.
Oh,
yeah, flash like not quite up.
Wasn't quite available, because if you look here, he goes for Guma, and then I expected a flash now to come in.
Yep.
So he could follow up and get the knock up, and then Guma just dies. And yes, it's still a hard fight, but a lot more playable. And as you can see, his flash only coming up in a few seconds, so really unfortunate. The problem is, you may think, oh, well, why didn't he just wait for his flash? But moments like those, timings like those, when you're this far behind, you don't get to pick and choose. Nope. They come, and you either try and take it, or you don't. They try to take it, it backfired, and now things are looking even more dire.
Man, Aiming is looking, yeah, like he doesn't really have very much in this game. 1-4-1 on this Varus. And still just looking for some scraps to try and put together his second item, that Rage Blade. Looking full of rage, but not a lot of blade at this point in time. And 2 items already done here for Gumyushi. Does have his Lord Doms as well as that Bloodthirster already done. This MF is just very, very powerful. 11 out of 12 as far as kill participation is concerned as well. Highest in the game. Really nicely done. Beryl, cute sidestep there from Ona, but still not going to be able to find anything from this play. Is DK going to need a bit of a miracle to try and get back into this one. And it feels like T1, they don't give the opportunities, right? Because they're not overextending into vision that they don't have, as the bullet time is so good. Beryl's door does pretty much nothing, and Aiming is just shredded. Down goes the Wukong as well, as there is an all-out, so they kill Gumyushi one more time. As Showmaker also might be able to get a kill onto Carrier. There is that one. Shiu gets himself out of there, but I don't know whether Showmaker wins this 1v1 against Ona, and he does not. Down goes the Cassante as well, as T1 complete the ace with only the sacrifice of their bottom lane, and you can see Shiu just head in hands. Showmaker not really sure of what to do, and this is looking like a bit of a glum DK at this point in time.
Yep, all they're really achieving is just hampering away at Guma's KDA. In terms of the game state, it's just getting worse and worse. Every time they take down the MF, feels like they pay for it 5-fold. And here, just walk up, they're on a ward, this engage comes out from Carrier. The shield's a little late from Beryl, and even then, I think, you know, I was wondering, did he put points to Z? I think I got my answer just from seeing that play.
Yeah.
Shredded.
Did he use his E, is what I was trying to consider. And then I did see that it was there.
It reduces the damage by a lot less when it's just a rank 1 ability, so, you know.
Yeah, not fantastic.
I know you haven't heard me talk about this too much before.
No, I haven't.
The skill ordering on the Braum.
Especially not in games that T1 are in.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it before, ever.
A lot more damage reduction when you put more points into it. So
where are we going? Carrier just deciding that...
Well, fortunately, it does still charge, even if you goop it like that.
Yeah.
So if they do get it to the tower, it will do the charge again. Why they gooped it like that?
Maybe Carrier was thinking about, like, he used it as a way to face check safely. And there was no one there, so he didn't need to worry about it, but maybe they didn't have that level of information.
Okay, I thought it was... I think maybe it was... The patch note said if you, like, charge into something and it doesn't, like, hit a tower, it will do the charge anyway. But maybe...
Yeah.
So far away from a tower? I don't know. I don't know. But,
didn't look great. Still looked like it was a bit of a problematic scenario, as you've got Showmaker moving down towards the bottom side with teleport in hand to get rid of that minion wave. T1 getting to work on the Otacon, and DK have no real right to move up even into their topside jungle. And so this will just be T1's, not a whole lot of answer. As Lucid wanting to trade for an Infernal Drake.
I don't think he gets to make that trade.
Well, I mean, we know that there are a couple towards the top side, but it looks like DK may not have full information. Showmaker coming on over. There's a teleport in from Doran. DK going to have to be swift about this one if they want to lock this down, as they do manage to secure it, get some bounty gold as the Cyclone comes in. Lucid looking for Faker there, but Faker moves out of the way of the Cyclone. Very nicely done. Hextech Ultimatum onto aiming in the back line. What's this Varus ever supposed to do this game? And it is get shoved and then bullet timed to death as Lucid, that was a bit tricky, gets himself over the wall as Shiu trying to get into that backline, goes all out and pulls Doran over, but he's so incredibly low. Gumayushi is looking for that kill, and he should be able to get it. Still, actually, Shiu doing some work, but Gumayushi's a raid boss. He is massive. That's another ace for T1. And I don't know whether they'll need that many more of those in order to win this game.
No, they won't quite end it right now, but the game is over. Even if the Nexus isn't going to get destroyed. So we see they try and make an engage onto Guma, but he opts to walk away from both the Sante and the Realm Warp threat. Splashes over the wall, and then this engage, Aiming just doesn't get to play the game at all.
And I thought that he was going to die from the shove, so he survived a little bit longer than I was expecting, but still didn't really auto-attack or do very much of anything at all. And here Shiu does manage to at least kill Doran. But a sacrifice of Doran for the greater good is something that every Doran team is very, very good at utilizing.
Yep.
You can see in this game, Doran is actually quite fed, even though he is still a bit behind in farm.
And with 211 hard steel stacks, it's so rare we see that many.
Yeah, that's some value.
The LCK game.
It's also quite rare that we see Lucid sitting at 0-6. This has been a pretty, pretty bad week.
I actually didn't want to look at that, so.
All right. Well, you don't have to.
I don't really appreciate you pointing out to me.
That's why I said it, so that you don't have to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. Beryl still getting into the jungle here, still trying to make something happen, but unfortunately it feels like the only things that DK can really make happen this game are, you know, 1 for 5 trades, which isn't necessarily in their favor. As Zona looking for another avenue in. Not going to be able to find Beryl with the Winter's Wrath, but I don't know whether that will matter. Baron going to be next on the cards. Been up for 22 seconds. As, all right, Realm War play. They want to kill Gumayushi one more time as the seismic shove is so perfectly placed. Showmaker goes Golden Shiu into that backline. They might be able to kill Gumayushi, but I guarantee they are all dead after that as Ona takes down the Rise. Doran getting on in there. Man, is doing so much damage. Shiu dashing around, doing cool stuff, but you know what? He's dead. And there is not a whole lot to be said other than that. T1, even though they don't have their 80 carry, they will be able to pick up a Baron. And that is going to be yet another 1 for 5 trade.
Max, do you remember,
yeah.
I think it was an MSI game, and it was on Faker's birthday, and I think he was playing against a Turkish representative, and they went 5-man mid and killed him level 1.
Yeah, that was, and Dumbledore got the kill.
Yes, and then from then on, SKT blasted them.
Yeah.
This kind of feels similar energy, where it's no longer about the outcome of the game, it's about killing Guma. I don't know why, I don't know what he did, but D+ have one goal, and that is to ruin that man's KDA. The game is done, but they've achieved killing Guma a few times now.
I mean, I think sometimes when you realize that something's too hard, you just lower the expectation. You know? Just like, we're probably not going to win a team fight, but guys, we can kill Guma.
Yeah.
And you know what? They achieved it, and it's about finding...
They achieved it 3 times.
It's about looking at the positives. Which, like, the biggest positive is probably Ona and the turnaround that he's had on his Sejuani for this season. Because, of course, his Sejuani was fantastic in previous seasons. Just hasn't been able to find the same level of success with it. And Doran now with 3 items, GA completed. I don't think he's dying again.
Something that was talked about a lot on Space in the pre-show was the fact that one of the things with the Sejuani is you'll less of the carry yourself, and T1 has been so owner-reliant, so it's a good omen seeing them win with them on the Sejuani.
Shiu is taking a lot of damage as Doran trying to chase him down. Aiming is going to push him away, but it's not going to stop this inhibitor from going down. DK, it is feeling circular in motion. They are just slowly but surely going down the drain. As Xiu does get his health bar back. Weave as well just to block off Lucid from this fight. Seismic Shove does not connect, but the Hextech Ultimatum goes in. There's another gorgeous bullet time as Gumayushi cuts them down. Kill credit going over to Doran. Sitting on 10 now this game. What a monster. Seismic Shove's gorgeous there from the GOAT. And I think T1 may have just done it far more swiftly than the last time, as Carrier does what he likes to do at the end of games, which is die to the fountain laser, and that's going to mean that it isn't the classic for this particular game, which is 1 for 5 trades. Nexus still going to go down, though, and T1 looking clean with it here today.
Yeah, and obviously we talked about at the start of the day, Carrier and Ona unfortunately didn't do walkouts because they weren't feeling well. I was a little bit worried, maybe that's going to affect that play. It did not.
Or maybe it did, and that's why these games were fast.
Well, regardless, hopefully they feel better soon. That play was on form. T1 making a very convincing win, and yes, last time they faced D+, they beat them, but it was far closer than this. D+, it feels like in this downward spiral, T1 really feels like everything is coming together well.
Yeah.
Pretty convincing performance on the day.
And the thing that's really rough is that I think a lot of us really knew that this is likely going to be what happens after what we saw KT do to D+.
Yes.
Because weekly turnaround for this team has just never really been their thing. They often have a bad week and then need to do something to try and turn it around. And sometimes it doesn't even happen.
And I think we can agree that, you know, if you were to make predictions prior to the KT series, you might have predicted a little differently than after the KT series.
No, because I think all of us predicted prior to the
actually, Pony and Prince were on my side, so you know.
Oh, right, yes. No, they also made a silly choice.
Well, you know, hindsight is 2020.
It is. And this was definitely, like you say, I think there are plenty of moments throughout this season where you'd say DK certainly going to be a forerunner. We were talking about T1 as a team that weren't quite able to figure themselves out, that couldn't work out where the pieces of the puzzle fit in. But now that they've kind of found that, it is certainly working a whole lot better. That guy walking past right now, Doran having a great day here today. The blind Camille on R3, protected by taking away things like Poppy and Jax. The answers just weren't there. This Cassante pick that you were talking about, Orcs, like, really felt muted. And T1 not only drafting really well, which has been a point of criticism for this team in the past, but also playing things out well, understanding where to be on the map, and getting all of the information so they can make intelligent decisions. This is the T1 that we've seen win Worlds the last 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like the decision-making was so crisp, so clean. I feel like D+ just win enough for them, win a good match. I'm genuinely really keen to see the rematch of T1 against Gen.G against HLE.
Yeah.
See how they handle those, because right now, if they're going to take those two teams down, this is the form they need to be displaying.
Yeah, and there is something to be said for strength of schedule, right? And there are certain teams that have had a rough run of it and certain teams that have had an easier run. DK's run gets a lot easier from now on, right? They've got HLE and Nongshim. Outside of that, it is everyone else, which are going to be, you know, easier matchups than this. But we kind of thought that KT was on that list, right? We kind of thought that DK would be able to punch down, which is something that they've been very good at in the past. They're certainly not punching down in this series, and they certainly weren't up against a powered-up BDD. Just feels like they're giving their power to all of these other teams. I wouldn't be surprised if KT looked a whole lot better moving into the next week of play as well.
Yeah, and seeing some clips from the game. Again, just those attempts on Guma's life.
Yep. And it was 5 for 1s every single time. It's like Guma dies eventually, but all of DK are the trade.
This double bounce house here was so well played. And the bullet time.
Guma calling for the Penta, and he's like, how did Doran take 2 of my kills while my ult was running? This is rude. So Guma still didn't even know that Doran took 2 of his kills. And Ona definitely does look like he's struggling with something. Looks a little bit sick in his tummy. And so glad that he got through this one as quickly as possible. Had a phenomenal performance. I don't think he died once on his Sejuani, and looked real good while doing it. Doubling the damage as a tank versus this this Wukong pick from Lucid doesn't really feel great, but honestly, like, there is not a lot that feels great here on the side of DK.
I mean, it's just, it's rough to say, because Lucid was such a shining light for this roster. But this was a gigantic jungle gap.
And look, I want to try and mitigate the shade to Lucid just for a second. Owner has kind of made everyone look like that.
Yeah.
Outside of, you know, Peanut and Canyon.
And I'm hyped to see that match again.
Yeah, no, me too. I don't know whether, like, I personally think Canyon and Peanut aren't performing to the same level as Owner at this point in time, and I don't even know whether it's close. But there's the Chovy factor and the Zeus factor and things like this that are pushing them over the line at the moment. Let's have a look at the player of the match, and obviously it's Owner. This guy is, he only died once this whole series. The jungle gap absolutely massive, and he is just, as Digon said, his sort of forerunner for MVP. I think all of us have been saying exactly the same thing. It's Chovy, Zeus, and Owner, and we'll just see who has the better performances as we move towards the end of the season.
100%. I mean, I think even when other players are playing well, I think Owner's just contributing so much. He's bringing up the rest of his teams. Currently third. Honestly, it feels kind of low considering how much of an impact he's had, but I feel like he's going to keep rising up the ranks. He's having just such a run so far in round 1 and 2.
He really is, and I think, you know, part of the reason why he's a little bit lower there is, like, Faker's been getting pentakills and stuff like that, so it's hard not to vote for the GOAT when he picks up all 5, you know, things like this. So there have been some great performances outside of just Owner on this team. But he is the linchpin, and he has been just performing so well. Even in that first game where things weren't going as well in the beginning, he was still able to then just get straight back on the horse, double scuttles his way back into gold parity, and then ganks the top lane, sorts out that Gwen matchup beautifully, and from there, it was just everything in line. So beautifully done, absolutely beautifully done. And Doran will also be doing... yeah, Doran's going to be doing the POM interview this time around because Owner is not feeling well. You saw, like, he had his hand on his tummy. It was not exactly great.
You know what that is?
Doran going to be stepping in.
That's a good teammate.
That is a good teammate.
That was a good teammate.
It also might have been Doran. They had the same first name as well, which is very, very cute. But Doran also may have said, I'm obviously second on the list for POM, and so I should be going in to pick that up. That is 100% just a guess, and I don't think that would have been the case. But it is actually great to have a conversation with Doran as well, because Koma already, in his coach's comment, was talking about Doran and the fact that Doran was the guy that he was going to be watching here today. His Camille game was fantastic.
Yeah, and as much as there was some goofy moments in the Gwen game, the solo death, and then the dying to the tower, that's just Doran, you know?
Yeah.
You take a couple of those goofy moments. Overall, it's a really good performance.
Yep, and we know that his team fighting, the way he coordinates with his teammates in those 5v5 moments are always so incredibly good. And we can see that T1 is actually able to leverage that now. That is the best thing about watching Doran play on T1 now versus earlier on in the year, was that he still had all of these skills. They just didn't have many of the ways to utilize them. Now it's going to be time to hear from Doran, so let's throw it over to the interview.
Thank you very much, guys. This is Dear for the POM interview translation. We are here with Doran. On behalf of Owner, who actually got the POM, but due to health issues, the other Hyunjin, Doran, will be here from the side of T1. Congratulations! You took D plus Gia down and secured your 4th consecutive win. So if you can get into Owner's spirit, let's do this interview. How do you feel? You know, it was a 2-0 victory. Makes me really happy. And Owner was the Hyunjun Owner was feeling pretty sick, so the other Hyunjin, I am here on behalf of him. Yeah, we heard Owner and Carrier are both sick, so a lot of fans are concerned about them. How are they feeling?
저희 팀 선수들 몇 명이 하프인데 그래도
A
오늘
few
아픈
of our players
와중에도
are feeling
잘
sick,
해줘서 너무
but despite
고맙고 또
not feeling
빨리
well, they
나왔으면
played so
좋겠습니다.
well, so I'm really grateful for them, and I hope that they feel better soon. In game 1, the early game was a bit rough, so what was the game plan to come back?
1세트 때 좀 되게 불리한 상황이 많았는데 그래도
Yeah, there were a lot of
와중에도
moments where we were
선수들이
behind and a lot of dangerous
최선의
moments,
플레이를
but
찾다가 또 좋은
I think all of our players were trying to come up with the best plays that we can do, and I think just being in that right mindset allowed us to come back in the game. And in game 2, T1 took Camille, Sejuani, and Talia topside very quickly. So how did you navigate through the game with this comp?
The
topside 3 champions were drafted because there were really high damage dealers, and I think those were the ones that I think we were just trying to focus on getting picks on the top side, and that was really our main goal. And before the match today, head coach Goma said that he's looking forward to you the most, that you have always been a solid player and that he can feel your form improving recently. So anything you would like to say to your head coach? You know, every time that my head coach actually encourages me, it gives me more energy to play better. So I hope that I can always repay all the anticipation that he has for me and play better in the future. And in the 2509 Ionia patch, there are many changes implemented to the Rift. So as a top laner, what is the change that you can feel firsthand? I think the elimination of the lane swap. And I think after lane swap has been eliminated, I think there are a lot of different champions that I have to contemplate on playing, and I guess it's just the draft that has changed the most. And your next opponent will be OK Savings Big Brayon. You will get to have a chance at revenge from round 1. And so how do you feel about round 2? I think round 2 will go a lot better than before, and I hope that we play well. And what are your goals for the match against OK Savings Bank Brayon? Yeah, back in round 1, we lost against OK Savings Bank Brayon, which made me really upset, but we want to make sure that we prepare even harder to ensure that we win this time around. And last time on this interview stage, Owner did the 3 hearts. So since you are here on behalf of Owner, are you able to show us the 3 hearts?
자, 오늘의 승리를 기념하면서 시원하게 세리머니 한번
To
부탁드리겠습니다.
commemorate today's victory, let's go ahead and show us the hearts. 1, 2, 3.
승리 진심으로
Thank you very much.
오늘 이렇게 인터뷰에
Congratulations once again.
다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
감사합니다.
And please give it up for Doran. And that's the end of the interview with Doran, and back to the space. Thank you.